Hey everybody, Spiceman here. In this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different for me, and I'm going to try and keep it short. I'm going to cover one topic, and we'll dive a little deep into it, but I'm going to keep it on the short side. This particular topic, we're going to look at air-to-ground in the Tomcat, what the Tomcat's really doing when we talk about air-to-ground, and we're going to learn a couple techniques for close air support. Should be fun. Let's get started. Okay, so we're in the cockpit, and I want to talk a little bit about what air-to-ground is in the Tomcat, so you understand kind of the system behind it. So the Tomcat was developed in the 1960s, right? Came to operation in the early 1970s. And one of its early drawbacks before the Lantern came along is that it really is a purely visual bombing system, right? The Tomcat does not have a database loaded into it of, topographical data. It doesn't have a GIS database or a moving map. So it doesn't know what terrain is underneath it. It knows its latitude and longitude. It knows its position on the surface of the Earth, but it has no way of knowing what's below it or what it's above. But it does have an antenna, and it's got a pulse radar, and that's what it uses to determine the point on the ground for air-to-ground. And let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and arm up here, and I'm going to go to air-to-ground mode. We're going to let the air-to-ground program load in off of our magnetic tape memory, right? And then we're going to go to I'm going to hop in the back seat here, and let's look at the display that we're looking at here now that we're in air-to-ground mode, right? What you're looking at is the pulse single target track display, basically. The radar has pointed the antenna to the ground, it's put it in pulse mode, and it's getting a radar return off the ground. And that's how it knows what's underneath it. It's scanning the ground with a pulse radar, and it's getting a return. Right, so it's essentially kind of like in a ground mapping mode, right? So if we want to designate a point on the ground, let me hop back in the front. Got to hop back in the back first to get myself in good bombing mode here. I'll select, I got CVW-12s on board. Select my stations. Quantity 1, just going to drop a 1 bomb. Now let's hop in the front. We're in computer target, right? And now this is a diamond there on the HUD, right? And let's go look at the back and see what it did with the antenna, right? It centered up the antenna, right? And my HUD is in the center. The diamond in my HUD is in the center. So that diamond in the HUD is actually where the radar antenna is pointing. Right, so if I come point at the ground and I want to designate a point in the ground, I'm actually moving that AUG9 antenna up and down. And when that antenna is getting a good return from a point on the ground, that diamond is going to stop flashing, and I'll be able to designate that point on the ground. All right, now let's go hop in the back and look at it. Right, so I'm getting a pulse return from that point on the ground that I designated. And now the radar, getting a pulse return from the point on the ground that I designated, is going to have a range, and it knows where its antenna is pointed. Right, so now the weapons computer in the Tomcat can take this information, coming back that pulse radar return, essentially single target track the ground, right? So now the weapons computer, it knows where I am, it knows my latitude and longitude, The INS knows how high I am, right? And now it knows where that point on the ground is because the radar is effectively locked up to it. All right, so that's what you're doing when you designate, it's passing under us now, that's why it's kind of losing it there like that. But that's what you're doing when you designate that point on the ground. You're leveraging the pulse radar in the AWG-9 to allow the AWG-9 to generate that point on the ground and ground stabilize that diamond. So just wanted to point that out of what is happening in the air-to-ground mode in the Tomcat. And now let's talk about computer IP mode. Jabbers did a good video on that, but let me give you a good example of how that plays into, let's talk about being on a close air support mission in the Tomcat. One of the criteria for picking an initial point for a forward air controller in a close air support mission is that an initial point should be an easily recognizable geographic feature. And so we can use that, and what computer IP mode does for you, when you are in computer IP mode, the radar is expecting you to visually identify the initial point for it. And then it's expecting you to enter an offset from that initial point. All right. So let's give you an example. So if we look at the map of the Nellis area that I'm in now, right, my initial point is going to be the old Alamo abandoned airfield there in the town of Alamo. Right, that's going to be my initial point. It's a recognizable visual landmark, and I can pilotage my way to that. The forward air controller doesn't even have to give me the coordinates for that. If they don't have it, they really could just tell me what that is. Your IP is the dam, or your IP is this peninsula, or in our case, your IP is the old abandoned airfield at Alamo. And I could simply pilotage my way to it, but I have the coordinates for it. So I'm going to go ahead and enter those in, and I'm going to designate that as my IP. All right, so I'm going to come to my computer address panel. I'm going to press IP, and I'm going to enter the coordinates for that. It's latitude north. I go clear lat north 37218. Enter. And it's longitude west 115 11.7 minutes. And it's at an altitude of 3,740 feet. They can give me that information, or I can go to a map and I can look it up. But the altitude of Alamo Airfield is at 3740, so I enter 3740. All right, so now I've told the Tomcat, the weapons computer in the Tomcat, where the IP is. If you look at a standard 9-line briefing card, all right, they tell you the heading, the distance from the IP, that's lines 2 and 3, and it gives you the target elevation, that's line 4. Those are 3 of the required lines on the 9-line. And I can enter that on the computer address panel, right, as an offset from that IP. So let's go look and see how that will work. I've got the CTLD JTAG script running out there, and I'm going to activate my JTAG, and he's going to find a target for me and lays it. The real world JTAG is going to give me a 9-line. So they would give me a 9-line in this case of Alamo 32610 4508 BTR 80. and they would give me the coordinate. I happen to know the coordinates of that BTR-80. I didn't write it down. The JTAC gave it to me. But it doesn't really matter because we're not using the coordinates. And he would tell me line 7 laser, right? And then he would give me locations of friendlies and an egress. But the key lines that I need in the Tomcat is my heading distance from the IP and the target elevation, in this case 4,508, right? So what I need to do is calculate the altitude differential from that target elevation that the forward air controller gave me, right? So the difference between my IP, which is Alamo, which remember was at 3,740 feet, and the elevation of the target that the forward air controller just gave me, which is 4,508 feet. That's an altitude differential of plus 768 feet, right? So the function for computer IP, you in the computer address panel, you go to target data category. I'm sorry, you go to the special category, and you see IP to target, right? So I'm going to press IP to target, and I'm going to look at my data block here, and I'm going to enter what my forward air controller just gave me. They gave me a bearing of 326, bearing 326. See it up there on the TID. I'm going to enter. Gave me a range of 10 nautical miles. So I'm going to press range 10. And I'm going to keep pressing 0 until I get 10.0 up there. This gives it to me in thousandths of a nautical mile. So I can have I've got a resolution of 6 feet here. But there's 10, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to enter the altitude differential. This is the differential between my IP and my target. In this case, it's 768 feet. If it was minus, I'd press the minus there. The plus, I can leave it alone. So I'm going to press 768 feet, and I'm going to hit enter. So now the computer in the AUG9 knows the location of my IP, and it knows an offset from my IP. And that's what computer IP bombing mode is all about. So now let's hop in the front and go find our IP. All right. So I'm going to back here. I'm going to choose IP on my destination selector. I don't see it here, but if I go to ground stab, I'll bet I'll see it. There it is. Where's my IP? And now I can hop in the front seat. I can go to destination steering, which I'm in. And let's go head off towards our IP. All right, so now we're approaching the IP, and now it's a little bit of computers, and it's a little bit of pilotage, right? I'm still going to have to visually find that IP. Remember, at the end of the day, the Tomcat is a visual bombing platform. You're always going to have to see something. If you're in computer pilot, you're going to have to see your target. If you're a computer target or computer IP, you're going to have to see your IP. You're always going to have to see something, right? So now we're just going to look for that old Alamo airfield. We're going to look for that IP. Let's see if we can find it here. There she blows. She's over there. All right, so now I'm going to designate that as my IP. I'm going to slew my diamond or point my airplane at it. And I'm going to designate it. So now you'll see the diamond jumped. The diamond jumped to that IP offset. Just so happens, the way after all the maneuvering I had done while I was yakking, it's actually almost behind me. So we basically locked up the ground there, and we gave our now Now let's talk about the solution queues as I'm maneuvering here. So let's look at the HUD. Just so we familiarize ourselves with our HUD display. There's a bomb fall line, our velocity vector, our target designator, and 2 solution queues. That's the main parts of our air-to-ground display. We have a lower solution queue. The lower solution queue, it started at the top of the bomb fall line and marched its way down. When that lower solution queue reached the velocity vector, I was within the maximum range of that bomb. So when that solution queue hits the velocity vector, I can start pulling up if I want to loft it. That's basically what's that saying. It's saying if you want to loft it, you can do that now, right? And then there's an upper solution queue. The upper solution queue is when the AUG-9 is going to release that bomb, or actually the AUG-15 is going to release that bomb when that upper solution queue gets to the velocity vector if I have the pickle button held down. So that's what we're looking at there in the HUD. So now I just got to get my velocity vector on the solution queue, on the bomb fall line, hold it, and now it's dropped the bomb, right? And so let's go ahead and look at how we did. Oh, there it is. That's what the FAC was pointing me at. Good hit. All right. So that is an example of what computer IP is used for, and a little bit on the background of what exactly is happening under the hood there in the AUG-9 for air-to-ground. All right, now we're going to look at using the lantern. I got a lantern pot loaded, and we're going to do a close air support using a JTAC, and we're going to do a bomb on coordinates. Right now, the Tomcat can't do a bomb on coordinates in and of itself, but we can use the lantern now to do a bomb on coordinate type attack. We're going to go ahead and attack that same target that we did before, but now we're going to pay attention to that line 6, that target location. Right? So if the JTAC were to give us this 9 line, he'd give us Alamo 326 10 4508 BTR 80 North 37303 West 115 187. Right? And so now what we're going to do is we're going to enter that target as a surface target. So we're going to come to our computer address panel, choose surface target, and enter those coordinates that the JTAC gave us as a surface target. He gave us 37303 West 115 187. And he gave us an altitude of 4508. 4508. All right, so now we can see it on a TID as our surface target. I'm going to steer the pilot to it, and I'm going to go to my lantern, and I'm going to cue my lantern to it. I'm going to activate my JTAC here, make sure that's going. He's lasing my target. All right. And now I'm going to go to air-to-ground mode on my lantern, and I'm going to cue it to my surface target. And we're going to let the pilot take us there. Go to TV mode on my, I'll say on nav mode on my HSD, and steer towards my surface target there. And as we get closer, we'll switch into the rear cockpit, and we'll use the lantern to kind of guide us the rest of the way. All right, we're about 15 miles out, and it's a good time to start hunting. I'll bet that's it there. Looks like we're probably maybe not quite close enough yet. But I'll bet that's our guy. designate it, even though it's not point tracked on it. I'm not worried about it so much. I'm not using the laser. I'm using my lantern to laser designate it. I'm just using it as a steering tool, right? So I'm just going to get near it and then drop on it. So I'm essentially using my lantern as a bomb on coordinate steering tool for me. The JTAC's doing the lasing. And there we go. Let's see how that works out. All right, I'd say that worked out pretty good. So there you go. There's a little bit on what air-to-ground mode really is in the Tomcat, and then a couple close air support techniques using the Tomcat. We learned about computer IP, offset bombing mode, and we learned how to use the lantern for doing bomb on coordinates. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.